Hello, friends. Welcome to A Little Room for Healing, where we aim to create a little more room in the world for authentic connection, insightful healing, and a deeper understanding of our hearts, ourselves, and each other through honest conversation. My name is Joel. I'm a Reiki and 13th Octave Laho Chi practitioner, a facilitator for deep healing, and your host. Today I'm visited by Allison Breininger. She's a caregiver, founder of The Negative Space, podcaster, facilitator, and coach. Allison became a caregiver when her husband was diagnosed with Fanconi Anemia in 2011. She founded the nonprofit The Negative Space to change the way caregivers are seen and supported. She co-hosts the podcast In Sickness, provides individual coaching, and facilitates groups and education sessions. On today's episode, she shares both the emotional and physical challenges that come along with being a caregiver. She talks about the tools she's learned to regulate her nervous system, and how she started a nonprofit called The Negative Space to open a space for other caregivers to feel seen in their own personal challenges, helping them remember that they are part of the story too. Thanks for joining us. Come on in. Hello, Allison.
Hey, Joel.
This is a new experience for me because, as we were just talking about, we went to high school together.
Yes, we did.
And you were just telling me that when we were even younger, we went to, a Smurfs movie? Is that what you said?
That's what my mom remembers, that we all went to the Smurfs movie together when we were little.
That was so wild.
So we go way
back. Yeah.
Way back. Yes.
It's wild to be, neither of us remember that.
Nope.
Oh, how interesting to have
it is
experiences that are completely gone.
Right. Right. Well, and then also, my husband, Sean, like he and I met in choir in high school, and the three of us all sang in choir together.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so now, and here we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm loving this connection, and here we are together. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's
of course.
You're the first person that I've known the longest.
Yeah.
You are the person that I've known the longest that I've had on the podcast.
Yeah.
Even though known the longest is such an interesting thing to say too, because we actually haven't even talked since we graduated high school.
Right. In 1998.
98.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Right. Yeah. But we have the Smurfs. Yeah. So that connects us way back.
We have the Smurfs. Well, always.
I'm going to have to look up and figure out what year did the Smurf movie come out to figure out how old were we.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah. So it's, but I feel so, it's an interesting feeling. I feel extremely comfortable and like familiar. Yeah. With you.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
Which is really, really cool.
Right. It is really cool but it's also kind of messing with my head because obviously, we've aged just a little since 1998. So it's like, there's this guy, right? And I know you really well, but also like you're the adult version of this guy, and so, yeah. But I love it. I love that this has brought us together again, we've been following you and you've been following us. And so I'm glad there was a reason for us to come together.
Yeah. So I'm really grateful that you came on. There's, I wanted to, I always get torn here because like lately I've been wanting to just dive right in, but check-ins are really important to me.
Sure.
This is kind of a check-in as well. I'm going to try and remember what I was going to say just now, but let's do check-ins.
Yeah.
I'll hold this and I'll see if I can remember saying it later. So check-ins are just how we feel in the moment.
Yep.
What are we bringing to this space right now? And I will go first.
Okay.
And I mean, we've already touched on a little bit. I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling giddy. I'm feeling this great sense of familiarity and also like curiosity because so much time has passed and so much has happened in life between the last time we've actually spoken, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today regarding you and your experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm feeling really vibrant. So that's my check-in.
I love it. And I love the check-in because that's, I think, too often, especially as caregivers, which I think we're going to talk about today. I'm a caregiver, and caregivers, we're always thinking about how the other person is. We're always checking in on that person, and we're not very good at checking in on ourselves. So I appreciate the opportunity to ask, how am I doing? I will say it's freezing here today. I live in Minnesota, and it's like 40 something degrees, even though it's almost Memorial Day, and it's raining. And that's really, I hate being cold. And so I'm feeling very like I have an electric blanket on. I just put a turtleneck on. I'm clutching like a warm beverage. And so I'm sort of like, and it's raining. And so I'm in this sort of, it's been a very confusing sort of season in which like it went to 90 degrees and that broke all the records, and then it went down, and so I'm sort of like, where am I? I'm feeling a little like discombobulated, like big picture of, is it spring or did that not happen? Does that make sense? How I'm feeling right now. Bigger picture and cold and grumpy that I'm cold. About this experience, I'm feeling excited, maybe a little vulnerable about like what are we going to find, what's going to happen, because typically I'm in the role of like I'm usually the one leading the podcast, or I'm the one like working on someone else in a certain ways, and so but I'm also always open to like new versions of healing and new ways of that, and so I'm excited about that, and like maybe a little titch nervous, but in a good way. So that's how I'm feeling. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, leading up to this, us getting on, I was feeling nervous.
Okay.
And then, I don't know what's going on right now. It's not really there anymore.
Yeah. Great.
But nervous is welcome. Vulnerability is very welcome.
Yeah.
I saw that you're holding is that a negative space mug?
It is. It is. Yes.
I'm part of the story. I love that.
Yeah.
Good. We're going to talk about that. It made me wish, I was like, oh man, I forgot I have a Little Room for Healing mug.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
That I usually have with me, but I don't have any tea made, so I'm not going to hold it. So, I'm like so giddy. I'm a little all over the place. I need to ground.
Yeah.
Need to ground.
Sure. Whatever you need.
So while I feel so excited about catching up, what we're really here to do is catching up, but also in a very specific way of finding out, hearing about, and exploring your experience regarding. Well, I don't even want to say. I want you to say it, but you have a specific experience that you are navigating in life.
Yep.
And can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So my husband, Sean, that I refer to, so high school sweetheart. So, back from the days when you and I were singing in choir together. He, at age 31, and he is now 46, was diagnosed with a rare disease called Fanconi Anemia. And so that causes bone marrow failure, and then it causes cancer at a rate of around 700 times that of the rest of us. So in the last 14 years, he had a bone marrow transplant. His brother, who you also know, maybe, was his donor, and then has had bladder cancer, had his bladder removed, tongue cancer, had half of his tongue removed, throat cancer twice, gum cancer, esophageal cancer. Did I say gum yet? There's so many. It's like I lose track, which is messed up to even say. And I'm like 150 skin cancers. And so, and the cancers will just keep coming. I mean, that is the way the disease works. So, in my early 30s, I was thrust into this role of being his caregiver. We had just adopted a toddler from Haiti. I didn't have any medical background. And suddenly I was like, hospital bedside all the time doing this thing. And what I realized pretty quickly was that all this attention was on him, as it should be, right? But that every part of my body, every part of my life was being impacted by what was happening to him. And there was very little recognition of me as his caregiver and the impact that it was having. And that when I did talk to other caregivers, that they were often just saying like, it's just a gift and a blessing that I get to do this for my person.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, yes. And who's talking about the fact that this is really hard? And nobody really was. And so what I did was I started a nonprofit called The Negative Space, because that's like the artistic concept of everything that's in the background of a picture, everything that's like in the background that nobody's paying attention to, nobody's really seeing, but that if it went away, everything would change. And so started a nonprofit, and we can talk more about that. But so I am still in the midst of caregiving. I mean, he's stable today, but things change quickly. And yeah, that is the thing that I have been navigating for the last 14 years, is this caregiving life.
Wow. The thing that stuck out the most to me in that, I mean, it's all intense and there's a lot happening. But the thing that's touched me the most in this particular moment is having other people in that role say it's the blessing and a gift, and you taking the reins and saying, wait, what about us? Because what stuck out to me is that in someone's healing journey, say emotional healing journey,
Sure.
and they're like, stuff is happening to them, but they're like, I just am happy that I get to, be alive and survive it. But they're stepping over themselves and their experience and the fact that their feelings actually matter. So what you were saying is, wait, my feelings matter. And I so applaud that. And that gives me, I'm vibrating with shivers of energy, because that is extremely important. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the whole, you mentioned this, right? Our whole theme is like, I'm part of the story, because caregivers feel like I'm not the sick one. It's not my body that this is happening to. Although, and we can talk about this, like there's all kinds of impacts on a caregiver's body from the stress, as you can imagine. But technically, I don't have the diagnosis. So people are like, well, I can't complain. So that's one reason they don't talk about it. And the other reason is that if often they're bright-sided is a term I like to use. So like if I went to someone and said, man, I'm a caregiver for Sean, and this is really hard, that makes the listener feel really uncomfortable. So they often would bright side me and be like, well, at least he's doing fine. At least you have medical insurance. At least, which tells me like, oh, I can't talk about the hard stuff. That's not welcome here. And so I just squish it down. And instead I say, I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed, And so that's why I started doing this, to say like, hey guys, guess what? This is terrible. And we're allowed to say that it's terrible.
Amen.
And people would be like, I didn't know we could talk about it. Like legit, they would write to me and be like, you have my words, but I didn't know I could say them. And so it's sort of been this like cracking open the door to be like, yeah, we're allowed to say this. And yeah, we need to say it to ourselves, because sometimes they don't even say it to themselves, but also to the world and to the people around us.
When you were first stepping into this role of shining the spotlight on it,
yes,
was there any shame working through of like that you had to work through of, Sean's the one who's like really in it.
Yes.
And I'm needing attention too. Was there shame that you had to work through in that?
Yeah, I think there still sometimes can be, even when I sort of give my spiel and I say, but it was all about me too. I feel like even saying that is like, hey, what about me? But it's like, but as soon as I'm saying it, I look around the room and I see people nodding, or their eyes get big, like, oh, I didn't know we could say it, right? And so I think if it was just about me, that would be one thing. But I think it very quickly became obvious to me that like, oh no, I need to be like a spokesperson, like I need to tell people like, you can say it's hard. You're allowed to say this. Now I have to say, like, I have the best husband in the world. And so he's totally fine with me. Like, he doesn't feel like I'm stealing his spotlight, or, you know what I mean? Like, whereas that's not the case for everyone, right? Some people, their spouse or their person might say like, hey, what are you doing? You're not, what? But again, because I am in a situation where my person feels comfortable with me talking about it, that's another reason I feel very drawn to like sharing our story, because even if this person can't share theirs, other people can see mine and can start to get a picture of like, what is this caregiving thing really like and how hard it actually is.
What is this caregiving thing like and how hard?
It's so hard. I mean, it's really like taking your life and flipping it on its head, right? And anything that you thought, the life that you thought you were going to have, just out the window. And you realize like how little control, how silly we were to think that we knew what was going to happen, how silly we were to think we had control over things. It is watching your person suffer and be in pain and ill and unhappy and all of the things, and not and feel trying to do everything you possibly can do to fix it, but really at the end of the day you can't. It is still trying to have to work because often the other person can't work anymore, and so then your job and your money and your insurance are even more important. It is trying to feeling like pulled in every direction. The hardest was, we have an 18-year-old daughter, and when she was little, you know, her whole childhood has been with a sick dad. And the hardest was when she was younger, and just always feeling like if I was at home with her while he was in the hospital, I was in the wrong spot. But if I was at the hospital with him instead of home with her, I was at the wrong spot. You know, if she got the sniffles and I would want to like snuggle up with her, but I would be like, I really can't, because if I get the sniffles, I can't give them to him. Right. And so just feeling torn and like you're never doing enough, you're never in the right spot, you're never, you know, like just always being pulled in all the directions. And so, I mean, that's just like a sliver of it. But then think about all of that plus being unseen, right? Nobody really giving you the time of day of the fact that this is hard, or that you're not allowed to say that it's hard, or any of those things. So it's this double whammy of going through this terribly hard thing and then not being able to say that it's hard, or nobody recognizing you at all as you're going through it.
How long, how far into the diagnosis and the process of being a caretaker was it before you started saying, hey?
Yeah. There was a moment, I'm trying to remember how many years. This was like maybe 3 or 4 years into it, maybe, that we were at a conference. So that was like a real turning point for me. It was a conference for people with this rare disease. Okay, so it's already like a niche group of people. And then within the conference, there was a lunch for spouses and partners of people with this disease. So like the niche of the niche of the niche, right? So it was like 8 of us at this lunch. And I was like, these are my people. This is my place. Like, here we go. We're going to talk about how this is hard. And the social worker was like, how's everybody doing? And everybody started saying, I am so blessed to be able to be the one to take care of my person. I am so grateful. And I kid you not that I put my fork down, because I like mid to my mouth, I was like, what? And then I stopped and I said, isn't this the isn't this the place that we can say, like, this is really hard? Like, if there's one room in the world that we can say this is really hard, it should be at a support group for this group of spouses of this rare disease. Like, why aren't we saying that it's hard? And you could just see that, like, people's like, what was she saying? It was almost like this secret, like I was saying the thing that nobody was supposed to say. And so that was this huge turning point for me that really made me realize, like what is going on out here? And it wasn't, I don't think I ever had a moment of like, it must just be me. It was more like, what is happening in the world that this group of people feel like they're not allowed to talk about it? And then that just really like sent me down a deep dive. So at first I was like, I'm gonna write a book about it. And then instead, like, somebody's like, well, first you should do a blog, because this was back in the day when blogs existed. So I started writing about it first. And then that's when people came out of the woodwork and were like, you have my words. You know, this is my story. I can't believe, you know, this, thank you for saying this. And then since then it's evolved into a whole nonprofit.
Wow.
Yeah.
What? Oh man. This is the point where all the questions flood in.
All the questions.
And I'm like, okay,
yeah.
where do we go?
Just
Give me
pick one.
Yeah.
Sure.
Here's the two forks that I'm.
Yeah.
Two of the forks I'm at. One is I really, really want to know about the internal journey.
Yeah.
Emotionally. Mm-hmm. And I'm also really curious about what your nonprofit actually, like what it's doing, like what's out there.
Sure. We can talk about both. I mean, well, I hope we can get to both, but
I hope so too. I just don't know which one to go right now.
Let's start with the emotional thing, because we can talk more about the logistics later. That's less juicy than your first question.
Great.
People want the juicy stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So do you want me to just respond, or do you have a specific?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Tell me, I'm curious about the emotional shifts and what you had to process when you were going through the time of my life is not going to be what I thought it was. My partner is in pain and fear and turmoil, meaning that you were in pain and fear and turmoil. And up to the point where you were put your fork down and were like, wait, we need to be seen. Like the feelings of not being seen. I would love to hear like the emotional landscape of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a big turning point for me was actually a couple of years ago when I decided I had been working like a full-time job as a director of a AmeriCorps program and doing this on the side. And then I decided like, I have to do this full-time. So I took the leap, I left the big job and started doing this negative space thing full-time. I promise this is going to answer your question. And
I got lots of patience.
Okay, great. And so it was like, all of a sudden I was like living the dream. Like I was left this big job. I had more time and more time to dedicate to this thing I was really passionate about. And you know what? I like totally broke down. It was probably like the worst well-being year of my life. And it was because, and this was like 4-ish years ago. So like 10 years into being a caregiver. Okay. And what was happening was, sorry about the dog. I don't know if you can hear that, but I apologize. Is that for all those other years, I was juggling all the things and I was just like, must keep going, must keep like, can't process, can't whatever. And then suddenly I had 40 extra hours a week in my life. And all the feelings were like, oh, thank you. Here, we finally have a space. And I was like, what is happening? Like, I should be feeling better than I've ever felt before because I'm about to do this thing that I'm really passionate about. Nope. I was waking up with panic attacks every morning. I was so anxious. I was exhausted. I was like, I had to like take time. Like I had this new gig I was doing, but at one point I had to just like say, I'm doing nothing for a month. Like I was in such bad mental and physical health. And so it was because of just putting my head down and pushing through it for so long. And then it finally had that opportunity, right? So they talk about like, if you don't let your feelings out, they're going to come out sideways. They came outside. I mean, they eventually were like, ta-da, right? Mm-hmm. And so as I went through it, they were definitely hard moments, right? I mean, there's multiple times when it was like, will he literally survive this moment? Like we have come to that. There have been a couple of surgeries that beforehand the doctor said, like, you don't have to do this. You can choose to not do this. Like, this is a really big surgery. You don't have to make this decision. We know that the median age of death for his disease is like 30 something, right? And he's 46, right? There's a lot of heaviness. So there have been moments along the road, of course, that are terrible and heartbreaking and but it was like and I felt them in the moment, but I think I felt them at a lesser degree because I just had to keep going. I had this kid, I had this job, I had this husband, and I just had to keep going. And so I felt them, but I felt them like with a cap on, right? And they felt huge in the moment, but it wasn't until I had this break and then it just, all came out that I was like, oh, a lot's been going on in there all those years, huh? Nervous system. Sorry about that, you know. And so it doesn't totally answer your question about feeling unseen, but I think that it just is more about the culmination of the feelings.
Did you say, right? You said it was a 10-year buildup before that?
I probably, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And like not just like 10 years, like 10 years of like intense things over and over and over and over again.
Pushing
yeah. Yep.
Shoving down,
yep.
being like, I have to be with it. I have to be here. I have to be on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think in the moment I was like, not going to feel the feelings, have to keep, I was going to therapy. I was trying to do the things, whatever, but they're too big. I mean, I always think about like, you're like at the beach and you're like, the wave knocks you over and then just as you stumble to your feet, here comes the next one. And then you stumble and it keeps happening. And so there was no time to recover from the previous wave. Like we even talk about, because our daughter's from Haiti and like just even getting her. And then we were like trapped in Port-au-Prince for a month with her when she was a toddler. Like we like never got to even process that. You know what I mean? There's so many things that we're like, we never processed that because the next wave just came. And so that when I quit the job, it just was like, oh, good. It was like a reprieve for the first time. It wasn't a reprieve from the medical stuff necessarily, but it was a reprieve in my life that opened up that space and just let all the feelings like come out. And there was actually a moment in that time that I felt so terrible that I was wishing for a medical emergency because I knew if one happened, I would just go back into like zone and I wouldn't be feeling all the things. I was like, this is a dumb thing to be wishing for, but I mean, that just shows like how raw it felt to feel them,
During that year, where it was all coming up, all the emotions were coming up. How did you find yourself working with it? And was there a point maybe in time where you were like, oh, I think I have a better understanding of how I can be with my body now?
Yeah.
Like what got you there and what was the thing?
Sure.
The way that you then approached all these feelings?
Yeah. So I'm a doer and a fixer and an achiever. super fun to be around, really. So I went for like solutions. I was like, I'm going to find all the solutions. I'm going to find all the tools. And so in the end, I think that benefited me because I have now a huge toolkit of things that I can access and that I can, use on a daily basis, use as I need them, all of the things. So it was a varied piece. But one thing, are you familiar with internal family systems?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I love that concept. I think it's brilliant. And in my brain, when I think about that, I think about a boardroom. Okay. And so like it's a boardroom and there's all the little emotions are in there. And that what I realized was happening, because what was happening is at like 4 or 5 every morning, I would wake up with a panic attack, like out of sleep. Right. And what I realized eventually was happening is that essentially I had locked the door to the boardroom and I had with a sign on the door that said, panic, you don't get to come in here. And in the middle of the night, panic, it was the only time that panic was like, would like Jimmy the lock and would like whoosh, come in and like have a dance party on the boardroom table because it was the only time it was allowed in because I was locking it out during the day. Mm-hmm. And so it was that imagery that I came to that helped me realize like, oh, okay. So then I was like, okay, panic, I hear you. What do you want? Well, what would you like? And panic was like, I just want a seat at the table. I want a little name badge like everybody else. I want to sit at this table. I was like, okay, come on in. Come on in, panic. Right. And that has served me so well. Right. And so to be able to do those things and to be able, so now what I'm able to do is I just like, there's a sign on my boardroom door that says all are welcome. There's no lock on the door. And every once in a while I go into my little head and I say, like, the mic's open. Who wants to talk? Who wants to talk today?
I love
and
that.
I just see like, who wants to go up to the microphone? So what do they want to say?
It's so good.
Yeah. Isn't it? It works for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, instead of thinking like, what is wrong with me? Or like, why am I broken? Or what, it was like, oh, that's the beautiful thing about IFS. It's like all these pieces of me, right? And so the panic, getting locked out of the boardroom, that's a piece of me.
Mm-hmm.
It was out there. And I had to lock that door for those 10 years for self-preservation, right? And it was only now that it was like, okay, can I come in now? Can I come in now? And I wasn't letting it in until it was like forcing its way in. So that was a really huge one for me, was to be able to like pay attention to like, okay, grief is here, fear is here, sadness is here, panic is here, like all those buddies are here. And to like try to give them the time and the space that they needed and the rest that I needed. It's easy to say now, but in the moment I was very impatient because I just wanted to like feel better. So that was a huge one. And then I just had lots of other tools. There's this thing that I wear all the time. It's called an Apollo Neuro. Have you heard of this? It's like a bracelet that I have on my ankle, and it's supposed to be supporting of your nervous system. And so I like it for 3 reasons. I'm not selling this, right? I'm just telling you. I like it for 3 reasons. Is in the moment, it feels good to like have a thing that I can do. I can go like turn on the bracelet, right? So that feels good. Number 2 is because you go into your app and there's all these different options. So it's like, are you feeling anxious? Do you want to go to sleep? Do you need calm? Do you need energy? Like you can choose, which is like that check-in that you and I did at the beginning, right? It's like taking that moment to be like, how do I feel and what do I need is super important, right? So picking the button. And then basically it buzzes. It's kind of like, they say like a purring cat calms your nervous system, right? So it vibrates at different levels and frequencies based on what you need, what you told it you need. So I mean, whether it works or not, I don't know. But I felt great comfort having it on and being like, this is on. If I start to feel panic, I have this button I can push and it's going to start buzzing and that will help me. You know what I mean? And so that was, yeah. Say that again.
Sounds like it works then.
Exactly. Right. Like even if it's fake,
whatever it's giving you. You're getting
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that, and then of course I was seeing a therapist and I was trying different medications, you know what I mean? Like the whole gamut. Like I was trying all the pieces at the same time to really build the toolkit. But I think just it gave me just like this big sense of awareness so that I've had that at other times. If it's like a break or a vacation or whatever, and suddenly I feel all the things, I'm like, oh, I know what's happening here. I got you. You know what I mean? So I've got more awareness than before where I was like, Yeah.
I'm loving this. I'm still loving the boardroom thing.
Oh, it's so helpful to me.
So rich, so good.
And sometimes I like buddy them up. I'm like, panic, it's okay, you can be here. But you know who I'm gonna have sit next to you at the boardroom table? Comfort.
So good.
And then they like hold little hands like they're on a pre-K field trip. You know what I mean? Like your buddy, hold hands, and you'll be, because panic, you can be here too. But comfort's just gonna hang out with you while we're on this trip. Yeah, it's like the movie Inside Out. For people who don't know what IFS is, I just think that's such a brilliant representation of it.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So, 2 other questions just popped in my head. One, about a post I saw, or a story. I think it was just a story that you put up on your social media, the negative space. And the other one is, that one's about a post about plant medicine. So I'm just going to mark that one.
But what medicine? Plant? Like plants? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is just me saying.
Yeah.
That post about plant medicine, I just want to mark that one because I want to come back to it.
Yes.
The one that I wanted to ask right now is, because this has been such a huge thing in your life and you've had to process the last, 10, 14, how long has it been now? 14 years?
14. Mm-hmm.
You've had to process the last 14 years. Do you find that any other things that may have happened in your childhood that are play in that you're able to parse them out or see how things might be related, if anything? And how do you give that space and time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, it's funny because I really feel, and I'm not just saying this because possibly my mother and your mother will listen to this because they'll think it's cool that we're hanging out. But like, I really truly had a lovely, simple childhood. Like, and every time I start with a new therapist, they're always like, yeah, sure, we'll get to it. And then eventually they're like, no, actually, I think you did, like great relationship with my parents, all the things. And so it was really until, like we went through like infertility stuff and then all the adoption stuff, that until then I was like, my life is actually kind of boring. Like nothing has happened. And so there isn't a lot that comes up from like, that relates me back to like childhood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I do think there's a lot of like my personality, and it's interesting how like my personality traits show up in this space and how it might be different if my personality was different, but no, I don't think there's been that kind of thing. And in fact, there's lots of, like my parents have moved across the country to be 5 minutes from us to care for us and all of that stuff. And so yeah. And it's one of those where like everybody's always like, really? But I really think unless I've like blocked out the terrible things, I really think that there isn't much from my childhood that, was.
Wow.
I know, right?
Amazing.
I know it is. Which did I block it out? I don't know, but
yeah,
I don't remember it.
And you say, I like how you said, people are like, really? And like, I can feel part of me go, really?
Really?
But then
Yeah.
the other part is going, I wonder, like going into story mode. Here's a story mode for you.
Sure.
Like, perhaps you were given that kind of childhood so that this life could have a little more grounding and something
Sure.
to hold the holy hell.
Right.
I don't know. That's story mode. I'm just making a story here.
Well, when we first, because like the whole getting our daughter from Haiti was like a thing for like 2.5 years. And it was like a drama, like I'll make a movie out of it kind of thing. And then she was finally here in Minnesota. And I remember naively being like, well, that was our hard thing. I just went through this really hard thing. And now I'm done with hard things. I don't know, like what made me think that was how things work. But I remember truly being like, well, done with hard stuff. And now like we hardly remember that all happened. Because that's like so many tragedies ago that we like can't even remember that was a thing. But in that moment, I do remember like waiting for her to come. And I remember thinking, this is breaking me so much that she's going to get here and I'm not even going to be able to parent her because I'm going to be so broken. Right. And now I'm like, oh, that thing that happened? I don't know. Like, whatever, but so it all sort of started in my like 20s and not in my childhood. Yeah.
Yeah, there's this question in me, and it feels like I want to word it right, but I don't know if I'm going to, so I'm just going to preference that.
Fine.
Having the knowledge of the process of what you and Sean need to work through and deal with now, does it make it any easier than it was in the beginning when you had no idea anything about medical stuff? Maybe logistically easier, but I imagine it's still like there's still the same like stresses and tensions that come up.
Sure. Yeah. That's an interesting question. I think that in some ways it's easier because like we know the system and we know this and I know who to call and I know what to expect and I know, you know what I mean? All of that. Like I joke that I'm a caregiving ninja and that I have like multiple honorary medical degrees, right? Like we have been through it. So in some ways it's sort of like, oh yeah, I know how to get through it. But the other thing I think about is like, we are like haggard, You know, like I think about, he jokes that he's like in the body of like a 90-year-old woman, because essentially like his DNA is like it's a DNA breakage and his DNA is like essentially older than he is. But I feel like that as well because I think I've just gone through it. So in some ways, it's like we're going into this thing, and yes, I'm more prepared and knowledgeable and all of that, but I'm also more like beat down because we've gone through all of these things, And so I hear about people who, and bless their hearts, like this is hard, but like when they're like, my person had cancer and it was lasted 2 years, then I'm like, that sounds really hard. And I know that it was. And we've had so many cancers, I can't even remember all of them when I try to list them. So you went through that, but we had also gone through this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And we know that we're going to continue to go through this and this and this and this, right? And so I think that while logistically it's probably easier, emotionally and like on a soul level, it's harder because it's like we're tired and it's like here we are again. And like the trauma of medical spaces and being back in them again and being reminded that like we were here another time or we're going to hear again, like all of that gets harder because it's just like stacking on top of trauma, on top of trauma, on top of trauma. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that answer. So this, now when I asked that one question I was going to ask before, I have, by the way, I've been doing this a lot lately. I've been prefacing questions I'm going to ask by saying I have a question. I don't know what's going on.
But I just know that you're going to ask.
Yeah, that's why I'm here, for me to ask questions.
Right. Yeah. It's fine.
So I saw you put a story or post up like a month or two ago.
Okay.
About caregivers and doing ayahuasca or something like that.
Oh, yes. That kind of plant medicine. I see. I thought you meant like the fact that I love gardening, which I would also.
Which is very much medicine and meditation.
Yes, that's why plant medicine. Got it. Yes, that post. Got it. Okay. Keep going.
I've done a lot of work with that kind of plant medicine.
Okay. Yeah.
I facilitate it and I'm a big proponent of it.
Sure.
Oh, this post that you said that you put up, post said, paraphrasing, that for caregivers to do that, it's not necessarily it's not necessarily an easy thing for them to do, or even the best thing for them to do, because you're always need to be on and can't really step away from the alertness of your person. And that really stuck with me. And so I just want to touch on the fact that you are always on, or someone in your position is on 24/7.
Yes.
Anything that might happen at any moment, because things can shift that quickly, right?
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it was actually a therapist that I met at an event, and she was asking, do the caregivers that you interact with, have many of them used, medical marijuana, or just different things to sort of to support themselves as caregivers. And that was my answer, was sort of well, it's hard for us to do that because we can't really check out. And she said something what about at the end of your shift? I was like, there is no end of shift when the person lives in your house. And even, for people who are caregiving someone who lives in a facility or whatever, they're always on call. And it was she had never thought about it that way. And I was like, yeah, there is no end of shift. So even in the middle of the night, and I told a story of a caregiver I know who someone had given her a gummy or something. And she was like, tonight he's asleep. I'm going to take this gummy. She took the gummy and he had a seizure. And then she had to call 911 and she's like, where are my pants? And the whole thing. And so I think it's true that even when we're asleep, our eyes are half open, our ears are half open, we're just always, and people talk about that, about we need more respite care. But they're do you know how much work it is to plan for the respite care, recover from the respite care? And even if we're gone, we're on call, And so that's a huge part of it with our nervous system, is this fight or flight thing, is that we're just our bodies are not meant to be on alert all the time. The bear is supposed to chase us and then we're supposed to recover. But we're just being chased by the bear for 14 years nonstop.
It reminds me of a child who's in a household with abusive parents who is always like
Yeah.
alert.
Yeah.
How can I not stir the nest? Like you're not like, not that you are like, how can I not stir the nest? You're just like,
Sure. No.
Stirred. And
Exactly.
what am I gonna need to step in and take care of
Yes.
them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. And that's a perfect analogy. And I think because of that, I have heightened awareness all the time. Like I'm the one that hears. I'm like, did you hear that? So even not related to caregiving, it's just my senses are like turned, super up. And like they joke about, they're like, we can't get away with anything around here because I'm like, I heard that. I smelled that. Because I'm just so hyper alert all the time of like, does he look a little off? Does he this? Or if we're out in public, is he sitting next to someone and they're like sneezing on him and we need to move? You know what I mean? It's just this like, and yeah, our bodies are not meant to be like that. What?
That noise was amazing. I can't even do it. Yeah, our bodies are not meant to do that.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
And it made me, when I saw that post, it made me sad. Because I know plant medicine that I'm talking about isn't for everyone. But I know that it is very helpful for those that it is for. And it like to have the opportunity to do it for someone in your position, like it made me sad that it's like, oh, those kinds, some things that are helpful in the healing space aren't possible.
Right.
Because of, you actually need to be on alert. And that made me sad.
Yeah. Agreed. It's sort of like, okay, is there a way around? But I mean, again, like the work it would take to be like, okay, somebody else said here. So that, like in the end, it's like, oh, that wasn't worth it. So it's true that like we're in this like super hard situation and some of the things that could potentially be helpful, we don't have access to. Right. And that's hard. It's like doubly hard. Yeah.
I feel like now is the time to do an energy healing session.
Do it.
As we speak of taking those moments for yourself and difficulty in doing so.
Yeah.
Then we'll do it now, and we'll see what kind of healing rest and digest that you can achieve in this moment.
Great. Love it.
Would you like to set an intention for this session?
Nothing is like popping up because I think I want to just be more sort of open to like what's going to happen. Do you know what I mean? And so I think I'd actually rather leave it open than being like, I hope this happens. You know what I mean? Or having an intention. So I think I'm actually just want to be neutral and like open to whatever happens.
Great.
Is that okay?
It's fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. Well, we will be right back after Allison's Reiki session. And we are back from Allison's energy healing session. Let's talk about it. If you feel like talking about it, what experience would you like to share, if any? And I'd love to share what I experienced as well.
Yeah. You want me to go first?
Well, I'll leave it up to you. Would you like to go first, or would you like me?
Why don't you go first, since I feel like I'm still kind of coming out of it.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is actually, I had to say, it's one of the faster transitions from coming out of the energy healing back into the talking.
Okay.
So people are actually still seeing you still come out of it. So let's see. The things that I would like to share about what happened on my end are that I what I do is I I ask I call upon your higher self and your guardians and also source and the energy of Reiki to guide me to what you need,
Mm-hmm.
what your body needs, what your spirit needs, what your emotional aura needs. And as I was tuning in and getting more um, focused, I was taken to, I was asked to call in um, something called the violet flame and took it into your spine
Mm-hmm.
and just sent it all through your nervous system to just
Mm-hmm.
burn away all that doesn't serve you anymore. So that was one of the first things, probably like 5 minutes into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then uh, I was taken to your stomach, and it was like this volcanic movement and eruptions was happening in your stomach. And I felt really emotional, and a couple tears came down, and I just worked with that a little bit until it subsided. And after it relaxed, I brought in this blue diamond energy of Mother Mary, blue diamond energy, and there it is, just love. It's basically just pure love,
Mm-hmm.
and filled that space with that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then I was brought down to your feet, and I was grounding you a little bit. And as that was happening, uh, this really beautiful, piercing white light wanted to go from your feet and fill your whole body,
Mm-hmm.
just being lit up by this light. Uh, yeah. And then we brought in the angels of light, and they went around and were like polishing you. And I thought that was
Oh,
really cool. Like,
yeah.
those they were like really getting in there, like polishing your toes, and then just one of your body went shh. And
Mm.
it was really awesome to watch that. I've never seen that before. And yeah, then we just did some just calming, calling in rest. Towards the end, I was just
Mhm.
calling in rest for you. And really interesting thing happened at the end when I was doing that, because I felt to me it felt like, okay, all the quote unquote bigger stuff is over now, and I'm
Mhm.
just going to focus on giving you
Mhm.
rest. And as I was doing that, this surge of, I don't know what it was, energy that uh, wanted to move, but also felt like it was fighting to stay in you, went
Mhm.
all through your body. And I was like, holy cow. And I went down to your feet and just helped pull it out. And we was like, okay, we're going to move that out. And then
Cool.
as that subsided, that was the end. That was when we came to the end of our time.
Whoa.
So that was the journey that I went on.
So can I ask questions?
Please.
So wait, when you said you like saw like angels polishing me, like what does that look like? Like did you like saw it? Like what do you see? Like what is that experience like for you? What like visually, you know what I mean? Like what are you
Yeah.
experiencing?
Yeah. I well, I work with these angels of light, and to me, they come in slightly different forms, but they were like little fairies this time. Um, just like they're always so happy. They're always
Yeah.
happy to
Yeah.
come and be a part of it and help.
Yeah.
So to me, I literally saw these little fairies like in my mind's eye. My eyes were
Sure,
closed,
sure, 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 sure.
uh, going up and down your body, polishing you, and also then seeing your body like start to shine.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. Um, so cool. Um, for me, it was like when I first, so I got in bed to do it. And I'm so glad I did. And when I was lying there, I was like, oh my, because I think I said at the beginning, I'm so cold. And one of my like most prized possessions in this world is my electric blanket. Like I love my electric blanket so much. And so today it's usually in the bed, but today, because it's so cold, I have it here on the couch. And so when I got in bed, I noticed, and we started, I noticed, I was like, oh, my legs feel really warm. And I was like, oh, it's because I have my electric blanket. And then I was like, no, I don't have my electric blanket. So it was almost as like the tops of my thighs and knees were just really like hot and warm. In a way, like so much so that I thought that like the blanket was on and it wasn't.
Wow.
And so I noticed, and like my legs are not a body part that I think of or pay attention to very often. Do you know what I mean? And so I feel like my legs, feet, and hands were what I noticed the most during this. And my legs the most. Like there was a lot of that, like the heat throughout. Like I just kept feeling. And then there was some time when it felt, maybe that's when I was being polished. I don't know. My legs felt like tingly, like almost like falling asleep, tingly, you know what I mean, in my feet and legs. And then my hands, at one point I had my hands resting and my hands felt a little maybe tingly or something was going on there as well. And then I also just felt a really lovely sort of like, I keep going like this, like a little like separation. Do you know what I mean? Like a little, not like, oh, I'm falling asleep, deepening, like more of a, when you can almost come outside of yourself for a minute. That I sometimes feel like if I'm like meditating or something and it's where you're like, are my hands like resting on me? I don't know. I can't tell right now. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And so a bit into it, I felt like sort of that like lightness of like, I'm here, but I'm not like physical right now. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And then it's funny, like right at the very end, I felt like a snore coming on. And then I was like, nope, no snoring. So I don't know if maybe that was the like final yank of the energy out of my feet or what, but yeah, those were the things that I noticed and experienced.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Do you hold things in your stomach? Do you find that your stomach is like a place where you hold emotions or energy?
Not necessarily. I think it's more like I know, and I've been told this before, like, the throat chakra sometimes is tight, or physically, like I get terrible migraines and have recently finally found a medication that has like changed my life because I was getting them like almost weekly and they were knocking me out for like 2 or 3 days. And at like Thanksgiving, I found a new medication that has like totally changed things. But so usually it's like all this tension here in here, and then that turns into headaches.
Huh.
So not typically stomach stuff, more head stuff.
Interesting. One of the things I didn't say was that in the beginning, what I was first drawn to was your head, and I kept like getting throat. I honestly, I didn't actually listen to it for some reason. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But then you say that throat is mostly where it is.
Right. I mean, I've heard that before, and it's sort of like, what are you not saying? You know what I mean? Like what's blocked here? Like what wants to come out? Which is funny because I feel like I'm pretty open book and I feel, you know what I mean? So I'm always, when I hear that, I'm always like, what am I not saying? But yeah, so I mean, definitely like all of the tension for me is here, like neck and head and all of that stuff.
Have you found anything that you're not seeing?
Probably, but I'm not going to say it here either.
All right, fair enough.
Wouldn't that have been a juicy twist? No.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, I love hearing people's experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Actually being in the energy. session. This is something that you may feel things from for a few days.
Yeah.
So be aware of that and pay attention to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Please do. Yeah, ask me anything.
So you and I know each other because we grew up in this like Lutheran Mecca, and our parents were, pastors, teachers, all those things. And I'm just wondering, and you can choose to answer this, but I'm wondering, how do your Lutheran parents, conservative Lutheran parents feel? And I haven't talked to them in decades, so I don't know how they think about that. But about any of this, like, how does this sit with them? And if you don't want to go there, that's fine.
I have no problem going there. And I also can't say that I know for certain. I think that's something that they would answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I were to venture, I guess from my experience of talking about it with them, which is very limited, they have a curiosity and a wariness, and also a curiosity, awareness, probably a little concern in there as well. That also, like, I don't I'm not someone who's any longer in that church system.
Sure.
So that happened a long time ago, and
sure.
That was the rupture and than anything.
And then, yes, I see that. Yeah, got it.
So this is just another thing of like, oh, what's going on with Joel?
Sure. Yeah. But I know that.
Yeah, it's something that they would be able to answer more specifically. I really actually have no idea what they're what they actually think about it.
Yeah, because I just know, the Lutheran high school that we went to. I remember our choir director that we were in choir with together one time saying something like, "Well, yoga is from the devil," or something like that.
Oh, you did?
No, he did, which I'm like, what? So, and not most Lutherans would not, I don't think, say that. But anyway, it just made me curious about, since that's sort of our mutual upbringing, about like, how that lands. But thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. I'm also open. I'm open to any question.
Yeah.
At the time, I mean, a podcast isn't necessarily about this particular one. I mean, like, it's about me, but it's not about me. Like,
right.
I'm always open to like back and forth. So thanks for asking.
Yeah.
It's funny to check in with that too, because I've had so much anger towards them. Regarding not being seen.
Yeah.
But I'm going through some change right now and a shift, and to check in on what your question, and feeling like there's not real any charge when I agree about is really cool to see. So I appreciate the question.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think that's probably where that, that hurdle, I think that's being unseen is, I don't know, I think one of the worst, like, that's part of our mission statement at the negative space is like to change the way caregivers are seen and supported. And sometimes I'm like, it's not even change, it's start seeing, right? And I just think that when you're going through something and then you're not being seen or recognized as you're going through it, that's like I said earlier, like the double whammy piece of it. So I imagine that feeling unseen by your parents is especially hard. So yeah.
It is. And I feel like whenever someone's experience that is so visceral and real to them is not being seen by people close to them or by anyone, but especially that like you hope would be like, let me experience and how can I be in it with you to the extent that I'm able to? I understand it, and like, where can we meet? That's so crucial and so important, I think, to just in a relationship.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and like I've, to the caregiver side, what I see is that when people, every experience they have where someone shuts them down and doesn't see them and doesn't meet them in that middle spot that you're talking about, just, it's like it gives them information that like, oh, I can't talk about this. Oh, I can't be in the world in this way. Oh, I can't. Right. And so that's why I feel like I'm trying to be like the check marks in the other column. You know what I mean? Of like, yes, you are seen, and yes, you are important, and yes, your story is valid, and yes, you know what I mean? But there's a lot of check marks I got to do to undo that other column, you know? And also that's why, the other branch of our mission, part of our mission is to provide direct support to caregivers. But the other part of what I realize is like, it's not enough if those caregivers feel great when they're just with me, because they spend the majority of their life out there with the rest of the world. And so part of our mission is also like, how can we educate and equip the rest of the world so that they don't say like, okay, I'm going to start talking about my caregiving life. And then they go to their dentist or their friend or their neighbor, and then they just bright side them and shut them down, And so, there's just like a lot of work to be done.
It's also truly, truly, truly what we say to people after they've had wow, brain shutdown. What we say to people after a journey weekend with a plant medicine where it's a really peak experience and they're shown things and they are now seeing things in a different way and they have experienced that it's really important to discern who you share that experience with.
Totally.
Some people just are not ready to hear it. Going to meet you and aren't going to see you, and it's not going to feel good.
Yeah, they're going to shut you right down. Yep, 100%. Yep. I mean, that's like the kind of thing where, you have to decide when someone says, how are you? Mm-hmm. You have to do the mental gymnastics of like, is this the person that I just say, fine, thanks? Right? Because that's way easier than saying, well, actually, right? And so it's that piece of like, you can't, not everybody's going to meet you there. And it's just going to hurt you to be able to like speak your truth to everybody you come in contact with, because that's just not going to land with everybody. Those other people are not ready to receive that, Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right?
Yeah. I'm like partly taking it in and partly thinking of where I want to go next.
Yeah.
Question wise.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing if I'm suddenly like, oh, I'm kind of thinking about where I want to drive to next.
Where I want to go for dinner.
Yeah.
Boring you, Joel. We could just be done.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay. I do want to add something about the not being seen aspect, especially what I was saying about my parents, is that I've also noticed that in that experience, I am definitely looking at all the ways in which I don't see them.
It's very gracious of you, might I say.
It took a long time to start looking there.
Sure. Yes.
It took a lot of anger, a lot of grief. And I was like, okay, now like, what can I do different about being me? And how can I, what is the healing in me that needs to happen so that I can be in a space where I'm seeing myself enough so that I don't need them. I can stop judging them for not seeing me.
But you also said a minute ago you were trying to see them, right? And realizing that there are ways in which you're not seeing them. Yeah.
So I don't know if
that's it's a slippery slope, right? Because I mean, in your situation, like those are your parents, and I think that's an important relationship to work. Like the parent-child relationship, I would say, deserves the time and energy put into it, right, to try to repair. And I'm just thinking about like, I think that in lesser relationships, like we're too quick to just be like, well, I'm just trying to see their point of view. And I think that's an empathetic. We want to see other people's points of view. And how can I love what you said, that first you had to be able to see yourself and value yourself enough to like get into that deeper, now you can see them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we often too quickly are just like, well, I'm sure they meant well. Well, I'm sure they, well, da, 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 right? Which, yes, let's give them grace. And let's also know that our voice and our story and everything matters as well. You know what I mean? So that's why I was just like, it's kind of a slip, like
100%. And and it's exactly, I'm definitely not saying that.
Oh, no.
About even about my parents either. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to see you because you don't see me, but there is a whole, like giving, like what you're saying on the more minor relationships and stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If your experience is not being seen, like boundary setting,
Right.
okay, I don't know if I want to be around you.
Right.
Don't
right.
know if I need that in my life.
Yeah. Right. Right. And I think something, in the caregiving world is that what that people are often surprised about is the people that they lose in their life, the people who can't handle it. Like people that you're like, oh, these were going to be my like ride or die friends or family even. They can't handle this disease. They can't handle the stress. They can't handle the whatever, you know what I mean? And these people, I would have never thought these were going to be the ones that stick around.
Yeah, truly.
But that's absolutely happens. It's a huge like sifter, of people in your life. And so sometimes you have to say like, you are not seeing me, or you're not providing me with what I need, or you da 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 da. But sometimes it just also just happens that like they just like disappear, and then that's a whole grief process for caregivers and patients as well, is just the loss of the people who didn't stick around, the people who couldn't handle it. You're like, you think I want to handle it? No, I don't want to handle it either. But here I am, how nice for you that you could just choose to be like, too hard, gotta go, So I think that, yeah.
There's this movie that I've seen a few times. I watch movies multiple times all the time. This movie's called Our Friend, and I feel like I really like the movie a lot. I don't know if you if like watching movies that hit too close to home is like difficult for you.
Yeah, it's tricky.
I would assume, but how about hearing about them?
That's fine, but thank you for checking. Yeah.
The premise of this is that this guy's wife gets cancer and it's rapidly moving to her. So she's just basically being cared for on the way out. And she has all these friends, like she's really popular in the community and has all these friends.
Yeah.
And they are just dropping off one by one. Like not coming, like saying they're going to come to this book club that they're doing with her, as she's like, but they just don't show up anymore.
Yep. Probably because it's too hard for them to see it. Yep. Yeah. 100%. I mean, we hear this from caregivers all the time. Either it's too hard for the people, or they're like, well, like we have to be super careful even now about germs, right? And so people know to say, like yesterday I was going to meet up with someone for coffee, and then he called and was like, I'm getting a cold, and so I'm going to make the call that I'm going to postpone this. I was like, thank you, And so, we're a little like more high maintenance than other people. And so it's like, is it that piece? Is the like, oh, you have to come here? Or is it that, you know what I mean? Like it's a little more work. And some people are just like, I just can't do it. I'm like, well, that's cool that you have that option. Good for you. Happy for you. But I think that it's like this, again, it's this time when you feel like so unseen and you feel lonely and you're isolated, and often like you're not leaving the house as much and you're not able to be in the world as much. And then your people are leaving you, at this time when you're already lonely and isolated, and it just feels like this like double whammy on top of a whammy on top of a whammy. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Is this, when I think about that and the grief that's involved with that, this a time where you would implement your boardroom scenario and be like, hey, do you have something to say, and like spend some time with
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And to say like, and maybe even before you say, hey, grief, just to be like I said, I like to just say like boardroom or mic's open. like who wants to talk?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because I think you might think it's grief going in, but really you're like, who's put up their hand first? Anger, resentment, frustration. You know what I mean? Like, and you realize they're all buddies. Those guys are buddies, but you might be like, oh, I'm grieving. But then like you didn't realize like, oh, anger really has something to say about this, So yes, absolutely. Like that's a great time these times are good. Like I did it the other day. I just launched, hopefully I can talk about this, but I just launched a really cool new thing for the negative space. And that night I was like, okay, mic's open. And then pride like went, what? To the microphone. I was like,
so cool.
And so I think it's a cool thing to do on a good day, on any day.
Yeah, any day.
Just be like, okay, that's only when I'm feeling something that's not pleasant do I want to open up the mic. But like on a good day to be like, because like, again, as a, Midwestern Lutheran, am I good at saying myself? No.
No,
and so like,
no.
yes. And so in the boardroom, I was like, pride, let's go. Let's go. Let's have a party. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of work. Speaking of, just a touch on that of and the feeling good and how it might be difficult to do that. I've done a lot of work with grounding into joy and peacefulness, and like when those feelings come on, like I've noticed in my life that I'm not grounded. It's like, oh, joy, and like I want to like really invite it into my body and ground it and put it down at the root and be like, okay, I really want to experience this. I want to be okay with it. Yeah.
Interesting, because joy to me feel like, I don't know why, but like joy feels so light. And so even you saying grounding joy those feel like dichotomous to me. You know what I mean?
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But I get what you're saying, that you feel like secure in the joy and be like, and let yourself feel the joy, like filled up with the joy. And like, this is something I'm going to let myself experience as opposed to just like, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so glad this is a video so people can see all of my amazing hand movements.
Me too.
Because otherwise they would be like, what's happening there with her?
What is this explanation? I don't understand what she's saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me about what the negative space does.
Yeah. So like I said, our mission is that we want to change the way caregivers are seen and supported. And so the first part is that we provide direct support to caregivers. So I have a podcast called In Sickness, and I have a co-host who's a man, so that we have sort of two different perspectives, and his wife has chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and migraine, so a really different situation than Sean. And we have like 110 episodes or something wild like that. And so like we have the podcast, and then we have virtual support groups, and the support groups are based on the podcast, which is so fun because then people listen. It's kind of like a book club. Like they listen to the podcast and then they come and then we all talk about it. And so instead of a support group like the one I mentioned where someone just says, how's everyone doing today? Right? We're like, okay, let's talk about that thing. We come in with a topic and then people are able to either like opt in or out. Like, I do not want to talk about that topic. It's too raw or whatever. So we have these virtual support groups every other week. I do one-on-one coaching with caregivers. And then we have caregiver gift boxes with this whole, like, I'm part of the story theme, and then the new thing that we just launched that Pride was so excited about in the boardroom is something I've been working on for like 5 years. And it's called the Storyline, because our whole thing is I'm part of the story. And so basically it's an online, because what I was finding is I'm just one little person over here and I have a complicated life. And so I'm not always available to the caregivers when they need me. And also like they often need support like in the middle of the night or at the hospital or whatever, right? And so the Storyline is basically like I downloaded my brain and experiences onto the website. And so they can go in and they can say, my person is newly diagnosed, or right now I'm feeling lonely, or it's surgery day, and they can click on that section. And then within that section, I created all these different tools and resources that meet all the different like learning styles and moods and moments. So there's nervous system regulation from like a yoga therapist, and there's a sound bath, and there's pieces of writing that I've done, and there's the podcast episodes, and there's like a little video message for me, and there's processing tools and all the things that you might need so that they can, in that moment, say like, here's what I really need right now. I really need someone to tell me what to do next. And there's like a next steps checklist they can print off, and they can come back to it time and again. There's guided meditations that we had someone write for each chapter, so that there, and everything that's in there was written and designed for caregivers. So it's not just like Googling, like, I want a meditation. It's like a meditation for a caregiver experiencing loneliness. And so then there's meditations for each chapter. And so it's on our website. The first 2 chapters, newly diagnosed and transitioning into a season of caregiving, are always going to be like available and free to everybody forever. And then the next 6 chapters, and then we're going to keep adding more chapters. It's like a monthly subscription of $5.99 a month. And you can also like get it as a gift. So like if tomorrow you find out that someone in your life, their person was just newly diagnosed or they're a caregiver and you're like, I don't know what to do for them, you could send them like a 3-month subscription to the Storyline, and then they have access to all those resources. So that just came into the world, and we're feeling proud about that. So, and hoping that that will be a kind of thing that can just start to spread and meet people where they are with what they need.
That's so good. Well-deserved proudness.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well-deserved. It sounds like a great offering.
Yeah. Thank you.
Really, really
yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. So we just got to get people to find it. It's out there, and we just got to get them to realize it's there, click on it and find it and start using it. So
definitely. When you said that sometimes you're not always there for other caregivers, like, in what way are you there for them? Are you a support system for them? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, that's, what I do through the negative spaces. I coach them, and I do the podcast, and I lead the support groups, and I do the social media. You know what I mean? Like, I am their person, basically.
Who is your person?
People ask that. I'm always like, I don't know. Yeah, I know people are always like, I wish Allison had an Allison. I'm like, yeah, me too. That'd be cool. That'd be real cool. Yeah, I mean, I have sort of a team of people, like Sean's the best, and my parents are close by and they're the best, and I have a therapist and all those things. But I do wish I had like a me, like somebody who.
Sorry, go. You say it.
Well, I think the funny thing is that it's kind of like even at the beginning when I said I feel vulnerable, there are other people who lead caregiver support groups, but it's like, I like to lead the support group because then it's less vulnerable and I'm the one that's like in control. So that's a whole thing we could like unwrap. You know what I mean?
You want to?
Sure. How long is this podcast? But sure, but because I think that's a whole thing, is that there are people that I probably could be using, you know what I mean? Or there's services I could be using, but part of it is like, I like to keep the reins a little bit.
Because it's so interesting. You do it because of vulnerability?
I mean, that's not why I created it.
No.
Right?
It's why, I mean, that's why you want to lead. It's why you like have a hard time going to other people and they're leading.
Yes, I think so. Because there's a local organization that has in-person, my support groups are all virtual. They're in person. And I went a couple of years ago. And as I sat there, I was a little like, oh no. Oh, here I am. Oh, I'm a participant. Oh, I guess I'm going to have to talk about, and it was a little just jarring, I think, because it's like, I was like, oh, now I'm the one that's going to have to like, because I think like I said, I'm an open book and I'm talking about caregiving all the time, but it's sort of like on my terms. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can decide if I'm going to write this post or say this thing or whatever. But if I go to a support group and I'm a participant, suddenly it's like, oh no. You know?
What's the fear?
What's that mean? I don't know. What's the fear? Because I don't know that I'm gonna like say or feel something that I haven't said or felt before. So I'm not sure what the fear is.
Hmm.
What do you think? You were just hanging out in there with me and my angels.
I mean, I think that, well, I I have stories that I can create, and I can
Yeah,
when you can tell me if they land.
sure. Let's do it.
Uh, but I think of what stuck out to me is that you I think you've said it. The control of how and when it's delivered.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe there's a feeling of if you are not the leader and you're then sharing, will some form of your control over your life, over the situation, be lost? And what happens to you when that happens? And
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's so much, right? This thing is so big. The feelings around this, all of this that I've gone through and I'm going to continue to go through is so like that I feel like I have to decide when I like burp the Tupperware. You know what I mean? And be like, right? And I can do that in my own ways. But if someone's just like, right, then it's like, like, will it be contained? Like, is that it's too much? And I just have to be able to like let it out in prescribed amounts
will it be
for
another?
self-preservation.
Will it be another one of
Mm.
those years? That year when you were like,
Yeah, maybe. Right. I mean, I don't have the sense that like if I go to a support group and I talk, like I've talked to a lot of caregivers who are like, if I rest or relax or start crying, I will never stop. You know, they say that and they're like, I just have to keep it buckled up. And I don't think it feels like that.
mm-hmm.
It's just a little bit more like it's this like gelatinous, nebulous monster that I'm trying to hold on to. And I want to decide when I like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and not have someone look at me and be like, so tell me about this, you know?
Something else is coming up for me.
Yeah, tell me.
Do you have no control over what happens to Sean?
Right.
You have no control
Yeah.
over it. So this is a place where you can have control over.
Mm-hmm. Yep. For sure. Yep. And I think that's true in a lot of things. Like I find myself when there's a big new thing, all of a sudden I'm like cleaning the closets because I'm like, it's something I can control,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Or it's like, okay, when that next emergency happens, at least I'll know where the band-aids are, you know, or whatever. And so for sure there are places that I'm like, I will hold on to the control where I can.
Right.
I think this feels like the thing that I'm realizing in this conversation is that this is like such a big, like I'm just picturing like a big monster, you know, of a thing that it feels like, oh, it can't just be like let loose.
Hmm.
Like it has to be like
Yeah.
a little like in bits and pieces, you know, or on my terms.
Yeah. I can understand that
Yeah.
and respect that. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
control you can.
Yeah. Right. Because even it's like I'll have like a therapy session. And so I'll be like, okay, here we go. Open it up, you know,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Control, lack of control.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been one of the biggest things to process and work with, being like thrust into this position of holy cow, this is a monster that there's no control. There's there's repair and bandaging and trying to realign.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the tricky things is that as a caregiver, there's parts that you feel like we do have control over, and that's exhausting. So like even if he's in the hospital, there's things where it's like, well, I need to stay here. I need to stay by his side because they don't know him as well as I do. And if I leave, are they gonna do it right? Are they gonna this? Are they gonna that? Are they gonna know that he can't have this or he should have this? Like, and so there's all these things where it feels like big picture, it sort of feels like there's no control, right? But like medium picture, it feels like, oh, but there are things I should be doing. Like I even did this week on the calendar where like, shoot, he has a appointment in person. And then we're like, does it need to be in person or could it be virtual? Because like the amount of energy and time it takes us to like for him to like go in person to this doctor. But then I'm doing like the mental gymnastics of, okay, what if I request that this is virtual? But if we went in person, they would have like listened to his lungs or his heart or his and found something, right? Or discovered something or whatever. And now that's not going to happen because I'm choosing to, you know what I mean? And so it's like the pressure on a caregiver of making decisions like that, of like, I have the control to do this, but also what if I'm making the wrong decision? Or with a rare disease, am I doing enough research? Am I asking the right questions? Am I making sure that, blah, 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 like, so it feels like there are some things that we're supposed to be trying to control, um, and that's exhausting too. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's a relief when it's like, well, that we can't control. So I'm not even going to worry about it,
One less stress.
Yeah, because it feels like there's so many things we are supposed to be trying to control and hold on to as caregivers.
Now, I mean, obviously, I would assume that when making decisions, I mean, you and Sean are both making decisions together. Do you, is just this so I can get a better picture of a caregiver's role?
Sure.
Do you find, is it that the caregiver takes on the logistics and process of figuring things out, asking the questions, so that the patient can have rest and really just focus on taking care of body?
Right. And so of course everybody's situation is different, but in our house, I'll speak to, and then also, I know I talk to caregivers all day, but it's just, that's for sure been the case so that he can rest because I have more of like the mental capacity and, to like be keeping track of all this stuff. Like I'm the one that like schedules the appointments and talks to the people and deals with the, like all of those logistics. And there was even a time like early on when we had this terrible insurance company and they kept sending us bills that were wrong. And like just the sound of like the mail coming through the mail slot was like so stressful for him because it would be all these bills that were saying like, you need to pay all this money. And then we would be like, what? But do we? And so at that point I was like, for your mental health, I'm going to take over the mail. Like you don't even get to look at the mail. Right. But then I had to look at the mail. So, I mean, for us, it's kind of gone through different seasons of that, but often that is the case, is that the caregiver ends up taking on so much of the logistics. And I talk about being on scene, like so much of the caregiving life is spent talking to insurance and medical bills and schedulers and prescriptions and like all of those behind the scenes things that nobody really thinks of. They think of like, oh, you're sitting bedside at the hospital. They don't think about all of the like bureaucratic stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and especially with such a broken system and all of that. So there's a lot of it that we end up doing. And so, yes, there are some times when we make the decision together, and then other times when, like, if he isn't well enough, like, I got to make the call, I got to make the decision, and have to be making these, saying like, okay, are we doing this? Or are we doing this? And it's sometimes high stakes decisions that we're making without official medical training. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm like, the word that's coming is impressed, but that doesn't mean, that's not what I'm trying to say. I just want to say I see you and the work and the amount of effort you have to put in.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's all that's not all, but that's most of what I and other caregivers want to hear. Right. Is like, I think one of the most powerful things you can say to a caregiver is something like, I imagine this is hard for you. Period. Like, that's it. Like, we just interviewed this oncologist that I just love, and he said he has built into his appointments a time when he just turns, looks the caregiver into the eyeballs, and says, I imagine that this has been really hard for you. And you know what happens next? They cry. Of course they cry, because nobody has said that to them. It went after that interview. So many caregivers were like, it took 8 years before a doctor looked at me and said anything like that. And it took 12 years. Nobody's ever said anything to me like that. Right. Caregivers don't want them. I mean, of course we do want people to fix it, but also it's like, we just want people to say like what you just did. Like, I see you. I see all you're managing. Like, wow, period.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Like, you just don't have to say, and right side. No. That it means the world to be seen and acknowledged in the hard thing that we're carrying. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for you coming on and sharing your experience so wonderfully, and grateful for what you're doing for other caretakers. And I think it's really important work, and the way that you talk about it and share it with a grace is so heartwarming.
Yeah. This has been great. I'm feeling very much at this moment like I wish you were not in a van. I don't even know what state you're in, literally, like geographical state, but I just would really like to give you a hug. Like, I really want to hug you right now. So that if your van comes near Minnesota, I would really like to hug you, because it just feels like, and this is a funny thing that came out that I'm just going to go back and say, is that when you said, who do you have, Allison? My brain wanted to be like, you. My brain went there right away. So I feel like now you are one of my, whether you want to or not, you're one of my people. So
happy to be.
Good. Thank you. And I'm one of yours. I hope you now know. So I love this, that this brought us back together after 26, 8 years, whatever. And yeah, this was an amazing reconnection. So thank you.
Yeah. And I truly mean that. If you are in a place where you just can't think of anybody, and my name pops up,
I love it.
Reach out, and
I love it. Yeah.
When I am available, I will answer right away if I'm available, or when I'm available, I will reach back out to you.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah. This has been really soul filling.
Yeah.
So thank you.
So good to reconnect with you. And I mean, I've been following your journey, what you share on social media for a long time now. So I've been wanting to connect with, I've been having to draw to connect with you about this for a long time.
Okay.
3 Christmases ago, you were in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, probably.
And I was in Fort Wayne. And you were holding an event, or you were.
Yes. Yep.
And I was like, I was like, I'm burning to go, but I stopped myself from going. But I felt this burning to go. Connect with you both too much. So it's been building for a while. Yes,
amazing.
I can't believe that was 3 Christmases ago, but it was 3 Christmases ago when this was happening. Because I haven't been home for the last 2 Christmases. So
yeah.
And here we are.
And here we are. And it happened. And I joked about this at the beginning, but I think, talk about healing and stories about healing. Sean would be an incredible conversation.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're living this side by side life, and we also are having immensely different conversations. And what people often say is like the veil is thin with that one. Like he is like the closest thing that you will meet, the closest thing to a mystic probably that you will encounter on this earth. Like he has come close to death so many times that he is just like, he's on a different plane than the rest of us. So buckle up for that one.
Yeah.
That would be another amazing conversation.
It feels highly possible, especially after talking with you. It felt like it almost felt like I needed to have this conversation.
Yeah.
In order to have that conversation.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, and I wasn't even like, I thought about it before, but I like not until now after talking with you.
Yeah.
And getting the perspective of what it's like to be this close to it and to have to caretake and to have to make decisions and the stress. So I may be reaching out to him.
Yeah. Because when it's happening to your physical body, that's a whole different thing. So and
he writes such.
Oh, come on.
He writes such.
That's the thing. That's why it's better if I'm on first, because after people hear from him, they're like, Allison who? Because he's just like, come on. He's so amazing. So he and I are just like hanging out, talking about the dog. And then all of a sudden I look on Facebook, I'm like, you just wrote this? What? How are you having, what? What are you doing? You know, he's amazing. He's amazing. So
that's great.
Yeah.
There's this, I've also been having a burning desire to offer something to caretakers. I want to offer a free energy healing session to caretakers.
Love it.
That or that I watch this, and if someone is expressing a desire for it, that you're talking to, or if someone is watching and hearing it right now and has a desire for it, I would love for them to reach out to me.
Amazing.
And just say, hey, I'm a caretaker, and I heard that. I'd love to get a session, and and the session would look like this. It would be a half hour of distance energy healing, and then we'd talk about it for a half hour.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yes.
And they can either reach out through my website, alittleroomforhealing.com, or they can email me at joel@alittleroomforhealing.com.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Well, I already have a long list in my brain of people who need this and would benefit from this. So we'll see if people reach out to you. And then if not, I can start referring, because I know a lot of caregivers that would benefit from this. So
I feel no need to wait. If you feel like referring, you can go ahead and refer.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay.
And this will probably air in a week or two.
Okay.
It's out in a week or two.
Sure.
I would really love to do that.
Okay.
Part of the reason, it's one of the reasons why I was like wanting to reach out to you 2 years ago.
Yeah.
How long I've been wanting to do this. I'm not a bit ready yet.
Yeah.
Ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, it happened at the time it was supposed to happen, right?
In whatever way I can help.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Is there any final words that you'd like to get out, share before we part ways?
So this is interesting. This is juicy. You ready?
Yeah.
I know you thought I was probably just going to like name my website or something, which I can also do, but something
I do that as well.
Yes. The negativespace.life. Okay. So go there, check it out. Something that came up as I was like doing the session, and that I realized like that I didn't, a part of that like year-long hard year, a thing that happened in that I keep thinking like I should have talked about that. So I'm just going to talk about it here real quick. It's this moment that was really, so in that year when I was like so dysregulated, there was a time when Sean had a procedure and I was supposed to take him, and I like could not, I was like weeping. I was like, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't go. I could not even picture like driving him to this procedure. And so we like got all hands on deck, and we got like my mom to come be with me and Sean's brother to take him. And when my mom came in and I was in bed and I was just like a wreck, and Sean and my mom were there, and one of them said to me, "You're safe. You are safe." And I remember sort of like scream crying at them, "I don't feel safe." And that is like a moment that like I come back to all the time of like, you know, and so anyway, that was just like a powerful thing that was like part of that year that I don't think I intentionally left out of the story. But then ever since I didn't tell it as part of that story, I'm like, that I think that needed to be told. Yeah. So, I just think it's like I'm sure you know about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
What is it?
Do you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
I don't know if I do.
Just it's like Ed's like 101. It's a little pyramid. You can Google it later. It's a little pyramid, and basically it's like all of our needs, and then like the very bottom of the pyramid is safety. And if you don't feel safe, then you can't go to here. You can't go to here, right? And if you don't have your food and water, and if you don't have your whatever, then you're never going to reach fulfillment, and you can't learn, and you can't all these things, right? And so it's just like at some level, even though I had physical safety and all of those things, like I was feeling totally unsafe, even though like looking at my situation, you would be like, why are you feeling unsafe? But that feeling was so loud in that time, and that needed to be voiced in that moment of me like shrieking, like, I'm not safe. I don't feel safe, So yeah. So anyway, I just felt like that story had to get out there.
Yeah. Thank you. The hierarchy of needs that you just shared reconfirms one of my core tenets of healing, and that's even just a like a life thing with the it's a healing thing too for me. If there's no safety in the space that you're doing the work in, then nothing's going to happen. You need nowhere. Safety is the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think we don't think about that. And so when again, back to caregivers, like me thinking about having to go to that hospital or that clinic or wherever he was going to go that day, it's like, that's the least safe place. That's the place where they do terrible things to my husband. That's the place where I've been a billion times before, and it's been terrible. And you want me to go there on purpose and pay you for it? No, there's nothing safe about that, Wow. Yeah. And so like typically I feel like that's just been pushed down, and it's been like, okay, here I go. We're going to go do a thing. And that, because I was cracked open, it was like, I do not feel safe. I will not go there. And even thinking about it was just like released all the stuff, So, yeah. How about that for an ending? It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, so good.
And my website is.
And by the way,
find me on Instagram.
Yeah. But do find her on Instagram.
Okay. But yes, legit. Find me on all the places. The Negative Space.life is the website. The podcast is called In Sickness, which you can also find on my website. The new thing, online thing I talked about is called The Storyline. All of it. So if you go to the website, you can find it there. And yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all the places. So follow along.
Yeah. Thank you for all the work you're doing, and thank you for being here.
Oh, this was just a joy. Really a joy. So thank you. And let's not wait like 26 more years for the next Smurf movie to come out before we see each other again.
Yes. Sounds good. I'm definitely gonna want to take you up on the hug offer. I'm coming.
Yes, please. Please do. Or even like close to Minnesota. We can come to your village.
Oh, cool. Yeah. What's your radius?
I mean, depends on the day. Let's see. The caregiver, Joel. Maybe you weren't listening.
Wait, I'll have to listen to the episode again. I'll have to listen to it back.
Yeah. Okay.
Something important. Sure.
I know. Something. Yes. Oh.
Okay. Thank you so much. And to all of you out there, watching or listening, I invite you to make a little room for healing in your lives, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for making a little room for my podcast. I'd love to be a part of your journey too. Follow me on Instagram at A Little Room for Healing for news, updates, offerings, and connection. To book a session with me, go to www.alittleroomforhealing.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, follow the link at the bottom of the episode description. Have a beautiful day.